Discovery is trying to turn everything into antique hunters. This is idiotic. Show me some science. Man, Discovery Channel sure has fallen. When I was a kid, I watched the Discovery Channel at the end of its heyday. I was fortunate enough to see all of the good shit. Early Shark Week, Dirty Jobs, Mythbusters, Alien Planet, Animal Face-Off, and Dinosaur Planet, among many more. These are gems which should remain unstained from Discovery's current, tragically tarnished reputation. Their downfall all started when they included less education and science-based programming into their time blocks. Things like When Dinosaurs Roamed America became less and less present, until they only came around maybe once a year or every few years. The latest good programs are made during the 2010s, Dinosaur Revolution, and Last Day of the Dinosaurs are the only ones which come to mind. The Discovery Channel was launched in 1985. Its goal was to offer documentary television programming on popular science, technology, and history. By the 2010s though, as you've already been made aware, the channel diverged into reality TV and pseudoscientific entertainment programming.
An all-new series, American Guns.
In keeping with this shift, the channel's slogan went from "Explore your world" to "There's no thrill like Discovery" to "Entertain your brain," which was used in the 2000s.
The Discovery Channel. Entertain your brain.
Of course, everyone remembers the World is Just Awesome campaign involving the I Love the Mountains adaptation.
Never gets old, huh? Nope. It kind of makes you want to break into song. Yep. I love the mountains. I love the clear blue skies.
It basically invigorated the brand for a short time in the late 2000s. This was followed by the mid-2010s switch to Grab Life by the Globe. How fitting, as they were more so grabbing the viewers by the globes. This has since been followed by the current The World is Ours campaign, of almost strictly reality-based programming. I should mention here that the Mermaids the Body Found mockumentary was not a product of Discovery, rather just a program they decided to run along with Animal Planet. Many controversies have occurred uniquely among the reality-based shows and programs on the Discovery Channel. Real shocker. For example, many of the Bear Grylls Man vs. Wild episodes were faked, partially faked, or enhanced, which was not how the show presented itself. The Alaskan Bush People in the Alaskan Bush People show pleaded guilty to fraud. The star of the disgustingly stereotypical show American Guns was indicted and arrested for fraud as well. These examples aren't necessarily condemnations of the Discovery Channel themselves, since they don't have anything to do with how bad their stars are, but come on, they shouldn't have even had these shows to begin with. One of the more recent controversies regards the poor anaconda in the nature special Eaten Alive. As its title might scream out to you, the people behind the show get eaten. Well, sort of. The star, wildlife author and entertainer Paul Rosalie donned a hard suit to protect his body and offered himself to a green anaconda. The snake attacked and constricted him, but surprisingly didn't attempt to swallow him. This resulted in criticisms of false advertising, but on my end it's more reprehensible for A, the stress and safety of the animal, and B, the safety of the dumbass who thought he could survive being eaten by the animal. Rosalie made a statement, no doubt couched in language coached to him by his people. I've seen firsthand how the Amazon rainforest is being destroyed. It is so rampant that we may be the last generation with the opportunity to save it. People need to wake up to what is going on. What better way is there to shock people than to put my life on the line with the largest snake on the planet, the green anaconda? Yeah, sure. Showing yourself getting eaten by a snake is how to save the rainforest. Not, like, showing the actual destruction and deforestation of the Amazon. As much as a big long tangent that all was, it was to my purpose to premise the current controversy with Discovery's very poor track record and tarnished beyond repair legacy. What's getting everyone but the average viewer in a tizzy now? Dino hunters.
I don't do the science work. I'm a cowboy that likes to find dinosaurs.
It's one of the coolest feelings in the world to uncover a bone that is 65 million years old, and you're the first to ever lay eyes on it.
When I told my wife I was going to try to make a living finding dinosaurs, she thought I was crazy.
If you were to find a complete skull,
We're talking millions of dollars.
Based on what little we know of the true contents of this show, this is actually the worst possible dinosaur or paleontology-based program you could ever possibly run. Maybe even worse than some creationist, revisionist history mockumentary thing. As someone who's steeped themselves in the history of paleontology, geology, and biology, I really just want to leave this be with a simple reaction. But I know for a straight fact, there's going to be some comments wanting to know exactly why this is bad. So let's go! Before I get into the nitty-gritty of why the subject and framing of this show is defunct, invalid, and harmful, let's go over the trivial surface-level shit, the special effects. Discovery is hit or miss when it comes to good effects. They were championing some good-for-the-time CGI effects with specials like When Dinosaurs Roamed America and Alien Planet. The CGI used in Clash of the Dinosaurs and subsequently in The Last Day of the Dinosaurs, though overall better than earlier programs, were anachronistic to the current understanding of archosaur biology, even for the 2010s. That being said, they finally hit rock bottom in Dino Hunters. The raptor model, which they threw on screen really quick, is laughably underfeathered, and the feathers they do give are not at all like any feathers on any living or extinct dinosaur we know of. This is because whoever made it knows a grand total of zilch about dinosaur anatomy. In fact, the feathers of a dromaeosaur shouldn't differ much from modern dinosaurs. The feathers should smoothly cover the generalized outline of the body without any skin poking through, except for the feet, snout, and maybe the very tips of the fingers. On top of that, its wrists are broken as another homage to Jurassic Park, and its teeth stick out of its jaws like it's giving a permanently agonizing grin. If you need people to commission as part of your network television programming, RJ Palmer, Mark Whitten, Chris Masna, and Jacob Bairds are within tweeting distance if you cared. Their Tyrannosaur models look like they ripped them straight from Turbo Squid and called it a day. These are quite possibly the worst Tyrannosaur models I've ever seen. They're trying to copy Jurassic Park's Tyrannosaurus, but fail miserably, and were even lazy in failing. The skin sags in places it doesn't even sag on an elephant, which it's obviously based off of. They continue to shrink wrap the skull by reconstructing the bone as though the living animal only has a very thin layer of skin over top rather than, actual organs and muscle and fat. They somehow got the non-pronated hands correct, but then lengthened the arms beyond what the real animal had. This model is meant to represent Nanotyrannus, but...
Holy Jesus.
What?
What is that?
What?
Yeah, so Mr. Phipps, I'd like to bring to your attention that Wikipedia and a metric ton of books on tyrannosaurs exists, and nowhere is Nanotyrannosaur a valid identification. The thing to which you refer is called a Nanotyrannus. I know I'm being semantic here, but stay with me. There is no Nanotyrannosauridae group at all, and there never will be, because your attachment to the Nanotyrannus name and what it might possibly stand for is getting in your way. Nanotyrannus has been largely lumped into Tyrannosaurus as a juvenile form of the tyrant lizard king. Plenty of unaffiliated folks have attached themselves to Nanotyrannus, thinking they're being counterculture, but there's not a whole lot for you to prove your case of separating the two tyrannosaurs. I will delve into excruciating detail about the Rex v Nano debate in a future episode of Tyrant Files. It's not overly relevant to this video, so I'll leave it at that. So here's the thing. Clayton Phipps is presented as one of the main stars of this show. He's a commercial fossil hunter and rancher. He's responsible for the discovery of the Montana dueling dinosaur specimen containing a tyrannosaur of uncertain affinities and a chasmosaur. He's also responsible for the discovery of the equally controversial Stygimoloch, which he unceremoniously sold off to a private collector for the whopping sum of $100,000. Now, fortunately for the Pachycephalosaur specimen, the private owner gave it to a museum. The same can't be said for the Montana dueling dinosaur specimen, which remains in relative limbo until someone coughs up enough dough to satisfy Phipps' demands. I haven't seen this show in its entirety because it's not even out yet. That being said, what it's presented as and what Phipps does outside of this show is not totally ethical all the time. Supporting the commodification of fossils, thus making the progression of the science of paleontology all the more difficult? Didn't expect more from this trash fire reality show channel. But hey, at least there are totally not staged moments with pew-pew guns. White dudes who are super into the cowboy persona seem to forget a huge number of cowboys were gay or Hispanic, but nope, guess that never gets talked about because it doesn't fit their narrative. I too am exhausted by the contrived cowboy persona employed by so many people. One of the promos for this show suggests Phipps has found another tyrannosaur.
And we found a pretty cool dinosaur this year. It is special. It's historic. I believe right now there's a Nanotyrannus, almost beyond the shadow of a doubt that that's what it is.
He has designated it a Nanotyrannus type tyrannosaur. If this is true, it's just another one of these things which will either be sold off to the highest bidder or remain in limbo until it is. Maybe some private collector will recognize the significance of these pieces of natural history, buy it, and return it to a scientific repository where it can be studied. But that's incredible wishful thinking. Sue the Tyrannosaurus is both the best thing to happen to paleontology and one of the worst. Her auction sent the message to the world that these priceless pieces of our natural heritage as human beings can be bought for large sums of money. When scientists say these things are priceless, they mean priceless to science. The amount of data in any given specimen, especially if it's as complete as Sue, is tremendous. It adds another dataset to the growing number of datasets which can help unblur our image of our past. Dr. Thomas Carr, a world-renowned tyrannosaur specialist, has an ongoing list of tyrannosaurs which have been commercially collected and sold off to private individuals. They are essentially lost to science unless whoever owns them brings them to a place of study. Many people have come to me with what they consider a counter-argument. Why can't scientists study fossil specimens which are owned by private individuals? They reason that if a private collector allows anyone to study a fossil they have, in perpetuity, that it offers no clear distinction from the fossils stored away in the vaults of a museum or other institution. I get where these folks are coming from. It comes off as a reasonable compromise. Unfortunately, it isn't. The counter to this, used by many paleontologists, is that no matter how open access a private owner makes their specimen, there will always be a possibility of access being closed at some point for some reason. For people to do real science, measure, estimate, quantify characters, and reconstruct phylogenetic trees, they need permanent, open access to the materials forever. What if there's a researcher who finds a new tyrannosaur and needs to take advantage of every tyrannosaur specimen ever found in order to construct the most inclusive understanding of the evolution of tyrannosaurs? If that privately held specimen is not in a museum which has complete open access, the researcher is now down a dataset which could have altered their conclusion. It goes beyond scientific explanation as well. If a given specimen is held in a private collection, the public can't see it either. Museums hold much of their real fossil collection in controlled storage rooms for protection, cleanup, and for research. Molds and casts are made of the fossils to put out on display. They're perfect replicas of the original, and therefore don't count as fake. They weren't constructed out of thin air, they're exact copies. If the museum doesn't have the original fossil, they can't issue out really good exact copies of it for museums to use for display and education. Many proponents of commercial fossil shows, where many important specimens are sold alongside the common ones, have reasoned that these shows are a good way to maintain interest in paleontology in the general public. They are very educational and provide a means for amateur collectors to obtain treasures for their personal collections. This is true, to some extent. Even if attendees do not purchase anything, these shows can be educational. The dealer may even be the person who excavated the fossils, so one can learn a lot in discussions about the fossils. You can't be sure every dealer is one of these dealers. There are plenty who know virtually nothing of what they sell. They paid someone to dig it out by the pound or kilo to make some dough. The same sides of the coin are present in the initial collection of the fossils. These people may be aware of the generic identification of what they have, and therefore the price tag, but care very little for the intrinsic value of the find. Now, I don't want you to think I hate this Phipps guy. I also don't want you to go off on a tirade against just this guy. It's not really his fault. The commodification of fossils is now a lucrative business which brings in a livable income. Scientifically insignificant fossils have been historically allowed to be collected. I've done it myself. The laws allow for folks to collect invertebrate fossil shells and the like. I have a small collection of the hard internal shells of ancient squids and a few brachiopods. These usually offer no scientific value to the library of scientific discoveries, experiments, and studies. The species and locations where you found them have already been logged and placed into an historical, geological, and biological context. There's a surplus of tiny fish skeletons and hard-shelled mollusks the world over, and therefore should be and are allowed to be bought, sold, and traded. It's the rare, important, and priceless one-of-a-kinds that offer large sums of information, which we need to better understand who we are, where we come from, and where we're going. Another aspect to this whole dilemma I'm not sold on is stratigraphy. There's exactly no indication in the plot summaries and promos for this show that these dino hunters are logging every minute detail of their finds. When you go out to look for fossils and find something which needs to be saved, you must log a great many things. The lat-long coordinates where you found it, the township and range, the county, city, area, and region, the stratigraphic rock unit you found the fossil in, or the ones above and below it, all the other less sexy fossils you found nearby, and much more. All of these details give you the context you need for any given discovery, so that future researchers have a log of where to find more, or to correct something if necessary. It may be boring, packed with scientific drivel, and take a long-ass time, but this is real science. The Black Hills Institute, owned and operated by a crew of people, including Pete Larson, is one of the few private companies which note all relevant data. Each one of their dig sites is measured and recorded down to the gnat's ass. They are also commercial fossil dealers, and sell the common fossils they find, as well as casts they make from the bigger important finds. Their museum is where most of their important stuff is housed to provide education and resources for researchers. They are also one of the biggest skeleton casting companies in the US, and do business internationally. You've seen the Tyrannosaurus named Stan, which they found, in nearly every museum you've ever been in. They're one of the good ones. Walter Steinbill and Mike Harris are other dino hunters who are presumably featured in this show. I admittedly don't know how extensively Phipps records his dig sites. According to paleontologist and student Cam Muskelly, Walter Steinbill is one of the good ones. He records every last detail of his dig sites. He has helped excavate, prepare, or discover well over 30 important dinosaur skeletons in conjunction with museums and institutions. He's authored 2 books about paleontology and is passionate about the free, open, and private pursuit of fossils, private property rights, and preservation of North American fossils. I'm pretty sure I made my stance on commercial fossil hunting pretty clear. I'm always open to having my mind changed. There's always more nuance to something than meets the eye. Though I generally disagree with commercial fossil hunting for all the reasons I already gave, there's always exceptions. Like anything, commercial collecting is a double-edged sword muddled in gray areas. We wouldn't have dinosaurs like Achiroraptor, Anzu, Mercuriceratops, Zool, and a host of others if it weren't for commercial collectors. Mary Anning, the mother of paleontology itself, was a commercial fossil collector. A few other paleontologists were asked to be a part of this show, including Riley Black. Riley said that the production company asked for some rights to photos. When Riley found what the show was about, which included convicted fossil thief Nathan Murphy, Riley said, "Hell no. This show is basically a crummy commercial for private fossil dealers to sell their wares." This show is kind of like the Netflix documentary series Tiger King in that they also have a convicted felon on it. Discovery's plot summary of the show is as follows. Montana rancher Clayton Phipps and Wyoming fossil hunter Mike Harris buck the academic status quo by putting their money on the line, traveling the earth, and turning out groundbreaking finds that have set the scientific world on fire. This is blatantly anti-science and anti-intellectual. There's a lot of ill will harbored against academics by these types. I totally get it too. So many of the old white guy scientists are set in their ways, unwilling to budge on theories or hypotheses they've spent their entire lives trying to prove, and biased towards a specific group of animals. But that is the pop culture perception of the field, and not at all the reality. What is the academic status quo Discovery thinks these guys are bucking? Real, thoughtful, data-driven research? By putting their money on the line? What? They've set the scientific world on fire for sure, because everyone's mad they can't use any of these fossils. Come on, Discovery. You've done better than this. I'll leave you with what was said by the Sternberg Science Camp's Twitter account. They're associated with the Sternberg Museum of Natural History with the Fort Hays State University of Kansas. Wide promotion of the commercial paleontology industry is harmful to paleontology research. It makes private land access harder for researchers and emboldens fossil pirates to trespass on private and public lands to sloppily dig up what isn't theirs to take. Thorough, reputable science is hard, highly specialized work that takes a ton of training, effort, and time to do well. This mockery cheapens the contributions of countless scientists whose efforts we all rely on in our appreciation and awe of ancient life. Glorifying commercialization of fossils in front of the public on your very widely viewed platform will harm the efforts of professional scientists and science educators. We'll be stuck undoing the lazy, intellectually bankrupt message you are promoting here for years. Most recent published peer-reviewed research refutes the validity of Nanotyrannus as a clade, indicating it is in fact a juvenile T-Rex. This is really cool science. Promote this. Inform your viewership. Inspire kids to pursue actual discovery. Suffice it to say, I will not be supporting this garbage show, and I ask you to do the same. To that end, I'd like to point you away from this trite reality show junk food television to something which actually has the potential to teach you something without completely erasing the human nature of the scientist. Prehistoric Road Trip is a PBS show about the fossil record of the continental United States and is hosted by Emily Graslie of the esteemed Chicago Field Museum. It starts airing on PBS Utah on June 17th, 24th, and July 1st. P.S. Mr. Phipps, I rebuke your dinosaur cowboy moniker. It's not good for your brand. The only true dinosaur cowboy out there is Dr. Bonker, okay? Yeah, don't at me. What do you think about the commercialization of fossils? Was I too harsh? Too lenient? Leave a comment below to let me know. If you liked what I had to say, leave a like and subscribe for more. Hit the bell icon to make sure you're in the know with everything Edge. Thanks for watching.
Boom, 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 boom.